What's up, everybody? My name is Ryan Thomas. You are tuning in to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, the 300th episode of the Thomas Take. It is the big show, as I like to call it, the big show. I don't even know why I just did that. That didn't even make sense. But it is. It's the big show. It is the 300th episode of the Thomas Take, and it is the debut episode on Grandstand Sports Network. Very excited to have the show on Grandstand Sports Network. It's going to be awesome. So, one topic, obviously, that I've talked about is the Buffalo Bills. And I'm going to go back to the beginning. Part one, I talked about their biggest positions of need. People need to tune into that. But in this part of the show, I want to talk about one particular player and the possibility, or lack thereof, for Kirk Cousins to go to Buffalo. Yay or nay? Should they go after him? Should they or shouldn't they go after him? I want to read something that I wrote for one of the sites that I write for. It was an article that I wrote a few months back. And I want to get off to the start of just talking about Kirk Cousins. I also mentioned Nick Foles. I also mentioned Alex Smith in this article. And I want to read my passage on Kirk Cousins. So, you can say that this is scripture. No, you can't. This isn't scripture. This is just football talk. Kirk Cousins. This is an option that I have to write down, but an option nonetheless that I think is the most unlikely. Cousins is a decent quarterback, and realistically, the fact that the Redskins selected him in the 2012 NFL Draft proved to be a saving grace for the team. I don't understand why Redskins owner Dan Snyder is not as eager to sign him long-term as he should be. This guy has saved the Redskins. Imagine if the Skins had drafted RG3 rather than RG3 and Cousins back in 2012. For their sake, they are very, very lucky, and he should remain a Redskin, but I truly don't know if he will. Should he hit the free agent market, he is the most coveted free agent signal caller out there. While I think Cousins is good, I don't think he deserves to be paid as if he is great, but the market will set up a situation where a couple teams will fall into a bidding war. And I truly hope Buffalo is not one of those teams. I simply don't feel he is worth the money, but I had to write him down on this list as an option. So there's a lot to take in there. Basically, I'm saying that I don't know if he's worth the money. There's been reports out there that dictate that Cousins could command $25 million per season in a contract. And I want to let it be known, Kirk Cousins has had some fantastic numbers these past few years. Since he started in 2015 for the Redskins, I add his numbers up, but let's just go year by year. 4,166 yards, 29 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, with a 101.6 QBR. 2016, 4,917 yards, 25 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and a 97.2 QBR. 2017, this past season, 4,093 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. So, 4,000 plus in 3 straight seasons, at least 25 touchdowns. If that was on the Buffalo Bills, I'd be pretty damn happy. I'm not going to lie. But will the Buffalo Bills open the wallet for Kirk Cousins? I don't know. I don't know if Buffalo is a market that could do that could justify doing that. Because historically, they haven't. The only time they did open the checkbook, though, was for one Jim Kelly. At the time, they made him the highest-paid quarterback in the NFL to bring him in 1986 after he was in the USFL for 3 seasons with the Houston Gamblers. That worked, safe to say. 4 straight Super Bowl appearances. That's a pretty big deal. Regardless of whether they won them or lost them, they went, and no team will ever do that again. But then you'll have the ignoramuses that say, well, they lost 4 in a row, and no one will ever do that again either. Okay, yep, you're right. But you're also wrong, because to date, nobody's went to 4 Super Bowls in a row. So, the only team that's come close, actually, is the Patriots, and that says a lot. So, Kirk Cousins, and actually the Seattle Seahawks went 2 years in a row. They won one and lost one. Despicably lost the second one, obviously, with the failing to give the ball to Marshawn Lynch in the red zone. But let's not talk about that. So as I put my Buffalo Bills hat on, I really feel that the best route would be to get somewhat of a veteran, whether it's Alex Smith. Kirk Cousins would fall into that category, but there's a story out there, and I don't know who reported it. I can't remember, but it was a legitimate source. I'm pretty sure it was the Boston Herald. Reported that Boston University has found a new method in testing for CTE in athletes. And the common misconception with CTE is that it is due to concussions that one is diagnosed with CTE. That's actually wrong. CTE is a disease which forms in the brain due to repetitive head trauma. Not necessarily, you don't have one concussion in your life and get CTE. It's repetitive head trauma to the brain. Obviously, repetitive concussions would make the stages of that CTE even worse than normal, than repetitive head trauma would. But repetitive head trauma is what makes CTE what it is today, especially in the sport of football. And Kirk Cousins, who has had multiple concussions and multiple, ringing of the bell, so, his bell rung, so to speak, stated that he has openly volunteered himself to be tested by Boston University. And he also stated he would retire soon if he was tested. He would retire immediately if he was tested positive for CTE. That's big to me. That's a story that is really being swept under the rug, and that's a story that I really think as soon as I find the link for that, I will post it on the Thomas Take Facebook page. But that's a story nonetheless that, as I said, if he's a free agent, he's the most coveted free agent quarterback. He's one of the most primed and ready quarterbacks out there. He's a guy that's asking for a lot of money, but some teams, I know, teams like Cleveland might deem that he's worth the money, especially teams that have money. Maybe even Jacksonville would think that, hey, this guy is a huge upgrade to Blake. Maybe we'll go that route. I'm just spitballing here, but I think that Kirk Cousins is a decent quarterback, but there are moments where he buckles under pressure, and that's the last thing I want for my Buffalo Bills. I don't want a quarterback that'll buckle under pressure. I don't want them to overpay for a quarterback that said himself that he might not be in the NFL much longer. He's got his money tucked away. There was a story about Kirk Cousins that was well documented that Cousins still for the last, up until last year, was riding around in his grandma's minivan or mini Escort or whatever the heck it was. So, he's an average guy. He wasn't in football for the money. He was in it to play. And he feels very fortunate. He went on to say that he felt very fortunate that he had the opportunity to have the career that he has had. So I'm pretty sure he was a 4th-round pick. Might be a 3rd. Might be wrong on that. But nonetheless, that's a huge story. So many people say, well, they should go out and get Kirk Cousins because he's the best option that they can go get, without knowing that story. And it was real. I saw it. It was a breaking story, and it just kind of got swept under the rug, which could be a huge detriment to at least one team in the NFL, whether it's the Redskins or somebody else. It will be a detriment to someone, because if he's tested positive for CTE, which 9 out of 10 players in the NFL apparently have it, he could retire. So that's something that I want to talk about tonight on the show, on the debut show on Grandstand Sports Network. And I went through, to introduce the article that I wrote. There's a lot of options. The draft is one of those options. This option provides a laundry list of options and also a degree of uncertainty, unlike any other option listed above. That's what I wrote in the article here. I believe we'll see 4 quarterbacks selected in the first round of this year's draft. Rosen, Darnold, Allen, Mayfield. Who the heck knows what order they'll be selected at this point, but I do see those 4 being selected in the first round. Let me get a swig of water here. I feel these four deserve to be selected in the first round based on the skill set that they bring to the table. Now, whether or not this is a route that the Bills want to take remains to be seen. McBean keeps things very close, but they do often mention the process of getting better. Better today and tomorrow. I really like Nathan Peterman. I might be one of the only Bills fans out there that feels he could become a starter potentially in the NFL. Whether that is for the Bills or not remains to be seen. I expect to see Brandon Beane at UCLA's, USC's, Wyoming's, and Oklahoma's pro days. Other honorable mentions are Oklahoma State's Mason Rudolph, and dare I say it, the Tyrod Taylor-esque Louisville signal caller Lamar Jackson. Regardless, this draft class needs to be sifted through and combed over again and again and again. Do the Bills feel like our franchise guys in this draft? Only time will tell. So that's my take on that. We don't know what the Buffalo Bills are going to do. There's so many people that do what I do. They have the podcast, they write, but they're not in that room. They're not in the room with Sean McDermott. They're not in the room with Brandon Beane. They're not in the room with the Buffalo Bills scouts. They're not in the room with Terry and Kim Pagula. They don't know exactly what the Buffalo Bills are going to do. We can only guess at this point until April 26th. But what I do know is that Kirk Cousins is an expensive option, one that, according to my mock draft, or one according to my mock offseason so far, according to my mock draft, I think Cleveland is going to throw the boat at Kirk Cousins. I really do. I think they're going to give him a lot of money. I think they're going to try to go after him as hard as they can if he does become a free agent, and I think that will impact the draft heavily. Currently in my mock draft, I have two teams trading up for quarterbacks. One of them is the Jets, moving from 6 to 4 with the Browns to take Baker Mayfield due to the fact that they're worried that Denver will take him. As soon as the Jets make this trade, Denver will trade out of it, being that they have no interest in Sam Darnold, and the Redskins will trade with Denver, as Denver will move back from 5 to 13. The Redskins will take Sam Darnold, and Denver will take Josh Allen at 13. That's what I have in my current mock draft. Take it for what you will. This is all fun and games to me. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take. Should the Bills go after Kirk Cousins? Nay. Take care, everybody.